Welcome back. This is your newspaper review this morning. This most definitely is K24 this morning. Karibu sana. As always, keep that feedback coming in at K24 TV. SMS us on 21222. Right now, for the next 20 minutes or so, we're talking about this whole process, trying to fix the IEBC and moving forward. Is it a powerful premiere, as the Standard has on its front page? And of course, the Punguza Mzigo bill suffering yet another defeat as far as the county assemblies is concerned. Let's start off with the IEBC. This was on the floor of the House, I think, 2 days ago. And at that particular point, what we thought is fixing the electoral process as we move forward turned into a political showdown, or at least what it seemed, in the sense that, and some of the intimations that are coming out is that DP Ruto has won the day as far as this is concerned. Yet the debate was whether to have commissioners added or send everyone packing home and bringing a new batch.
By the way, Jeff, first of all, the headlines, that was sensational reporting. It has got nothing to do with the Deputy President or even the President for that matter. What it has to do, what it has everything to do with is the fact that IEBC currently is not what you'd call legally constituted. So when a commission like that is not legally constituted, it just tells you that we cannot go with IEBC into 2022. Right. And you know, the reason why I keep insisting that sometimes we play around with a key institution like IEBC, if you remember, you go back to what Kridla said. You know, he said, if you do not want to play around with the 2007, 2008, ensure such a commission is constituted and everything, elections or major elections, is a go 2 hours or not 2 hours, 2 years or 24 hours, or 24 months before. So you see how now at the very least we've started early, which is a good sign. So what needs to do, let what the parliamentarians came with, even if you're talking about getting the 4 commissioners, I know the 2 that you know, gave their resignation. We need still to know, did the president accept their resignation, or are they going to be part of new batch? That is not still clear, but probably within the next few weeks it will become clearer as we move along, when the president, you know, sends that the fact that now the government or parliament can now recruit the new commissioners. So once that is done, I think we should, there are several things that must be ratified. And key among them is, how do we have an IEBC that will carry the huge mantle of our elections? Right. What will BBI or Punguza Mzigo or the referendum debate that we are talking about, what will it bring?
That's a question you should be asking now.
If we are talking about a referendum today, we cannot go to a referendum with the way IEBC is constituted.
Right.
So we must deal with this issue right now. However, even as we are dealing with IEBC, I would actually, if I was to advise the forces that may be, is to say, even as we are recruiting, it needs to be a future outfit that will take us to 2022 and beyond. The fact that we are just going to bring an IEBC or commissioners to just get us through a referendum is not where we should be going. And that's why this is a serious exercise.
Right. And I just want to bring Ruth in on this as well, because we've seen this body take different names, different commissioners, different forms as far as this is concerned. But the big question is, where do they always get it wrong? We've seen how ECK handled that. Yeah. We saw what happened in 2007. IEC came in. They were bundled out because of what happened. We have the IEBC. And they were being called also for them to be taken all home because they didn't carry out the job. Here we are, yet again. Is it the commissioners that we're putting in? Is it the body that we're putting in? Or is it the politicians who are the problem? Such that even if we got a new body and new commissioners, 2022 will still have the same allegations of it not being transparent, something happened behind the scenes, commissioners fighting, which is always going on. What's the solution once and for all?
I think the problem is when we miss the principle behind a proper electoral system. And the major principle behind a strong and proper electoral system is the independence of the body that shall conduct the elections. Remember that a strong democracy, any powerful, strong democracy, is one whose elections, you know, are properly managed and properly handled. And I think for us, the problem is when we focus too much on the commission itself, and even we focus too much on the commission itself and forget that there are 2 things that play in an election. You know, the independence of the commission, as well as the thoroughness of the electoral process itself, or the electoral processes in place, you know, themselves, how the system of how the electoral process itself is designed. Remember, after the 2017 election, NASA came up with 9 irreducible minimums that they were saying had to be met by IEBC before going for the repeat election. And now you see all those who are touching on the electoral process itself, something that they realized after the first election that, you know, these were the gaps that IEBC failed to cover, or even, you know, put in place measures to cover before the election was held. So they were addressing process issues. And you see, at that point, they were focusing on process issues, forgetting about the constitution of IEBC itself. So we miss it when we fail to understand, or rather to fulfill the principle behind what an IEBC should look like. And that is independence of the body. The moment you have a purely and properly independent IEBC, so many of the issues we are facing as a country would disappear. In fact, we would not even have some of the agenda that are being put forth for the referendum. Right. Because you see, one of the things that we are trying to fix with the new referendum, or even what BBI is trying to achieve, is inclusivity and, you know, cohesion within the country. And cohesion, for me, I feel that we lose cohesion in a nation during elections. All the other times, the 4 years after elections, we are good, we are brothers. Muthuma and I are over here high-fiving you, talking like brother and sister, not even thinking about where we come from as you know, as where we come from, tribally speaking. But when the elections come now, that's when we realize, oh, you know what? We are going to elect, we cannot elect a Kikuyu president. We cannot elect a Luo president. We do not want a Kalenjin president. If we had an independent IEBC, if we had an electoral system that we knew and we were guaranteed and we had confidence that if elections were held today, he who will be elected by the majority as president is he who will be declared as the president, then some of the issues we have today, we would not have. 2 things that we need to look at. You know, one, the weakness of the institution itself, which is contributed, or rather attributed majorly by the lack of independence of the body. And the lack of independence is realized, or rather we miss getting an independent body at the point of recruitment. The moment you recruit an individual who you know, or even have an inkling that is connected to a particular political leader, the problem begins there. And the moment a commission has been put in place, and a few Kenyans already feel that, oh, 3 of these IEBC officials seem to be aligned to this particular presidential candidate, or might be aligned to this particular presidential candidate, then we have already lost it. Right. There needs to be a new and fully independent IEBC, because we cannot continue with the same mistakes. If Kenyans do not have confidence in Chebukati as the chairperson of the IEBC, then we would not want to carry on that, you know, lack of confidence in Chebukati to the 2022 elections. The moment as Kenyans we are thinking we do not even have confidence in this individual to run elections, that is it. Okay. Even if we have rightful leaders elected, we will always doubt whether they were validly elected. And second, lack of oversight. In the last, you know, when this, I usually say that I'm not against the handshake, but I feel that the handshake has weakened the role of the opposition in this country. Remember, after the 2013 elections, we had a very active, robustly active opposition that went to the streets and even called for the resignation and the total overhaul of the previous IEBC commission. And that was done. But right now, who is checking the IEBC? Who is, you know, going at the forefront and say, you know, we need reforms? Right. Everybody is comfortable. Nobody wants to offend the government in government, the current government.
Gabriel, let me bring you in terms of independence of this body. How do you actually get that in, you know, the climate that you're in? How do you make sure it's stood? Because in principle, right, it is independent, right, you know, but when you look at on the practicality of it, yes, it speaks a different story. How do you ensure that?
You see, Jeff, and I think every time we talk about this, I don't know why it gets lost within, you know, within the funnels of the Republic. But I would like to believe when you talked about the independence that even Wakili here is talking about, when a commission like IEBC, we said we are going to constitute an independent body to overlook or to oversee our elections, we should have realized that we will not outsource people outside the country. It is me and you who will take up these jobs. So the thing that comes to mind is credibility. How do you ensure that whatever is put ahead of you, you're able to deliver it to the Kenyan people through a fair way, in a credible way. If you may recall, when there were Monday, Machozi, what was it called?
Tear gas
Monday. We wanted the Hassan-led commission out. And indeed, they went out. But the moment Chebukati-led commission came in, they had a problem as well.
Yeah.
So you started asking yourself, what is it that we want? And when we talk about constituting a commission, that is exactly, you know, what we as a people should do. Bring in people whose character is up to par. But we must also realize that these people are within us. So there's no way we are talking as if we are going to outside the country to outsource people to come and run our commission. It is the very same people, us, me and you, who are going to be mandated with these officers. So credibility has to be key. The other thing which is, you know, which we must also talk about is when we ratify now the new IEBC, the new commissioners, when they come in, the purpose of them coming in is to ensure that our elections are going to be credible. But we must give them time. You saw the current IEBC, how many times they were hauled in and out of court before they went to the elections. So yes, we provide them the office, we provide them the mandate, but we don't allow them to do their job, which means it is not the issue, whether it's Chebukati and the former CEO, Chiloba, fighting, you know, here and there. It just goes on to show you that the issues within the commission could have actually come from outside. We give people the work, but we are not supporting them. All right? So I do not ever see a point up until when we change our thinking to allow these people do the work that we've given them. I don't think we'll have, you know, an end to this fracas. So you know, if it goes on to say the kind of a people, you know, that we are the first one to want to have people in these offices, but at the same time, we are the first people to chastise them. So as a matter of fact, we are doing a disservice to ourselves.
And even as we're talking about all of this, a discussion that's also being brought into the fray as we look at this moving forward also is now the different referendum questions that are going on. We're still waiting for the BBI to table the report. We see what will be covered therein. But also within that particular framework, we've been talking about a powerful premier that might be put in place to solve this particular issue. And that's also what makes the front page of this Standard, the early edition. We are ready for powerful premier. An early edition of the Standard was talking about Uhuru and Raila quitting politics for 2022. That was covered there. But in this one, the opposition leader is saying that parliamentary system is the best way to stop election-related violence and ethnic division. So we let our MPs decide who's going to be the head on that particular issue. Do we have that much faith in our parliament and our parliamentarians? Because you talk about it, you're like, okay, fine.
Jeff, let me ask you, Jeff, let me ask you. How many times have those MPs fought on the floor of the House? How many times have they carried water and thrown other unmentionables?
Right.
All right?
We've seen them whistling.
You see, yeah, exactly. You see, my concern, and it will continue being a concern for far, far too long, is when we pigeonhole ourselves into a certain way of thinking. This is the only way. Let me tell you, Wanjiku doesn't care about that. Wanjiku cares about very simple things. Wanjiku cares about food. Wanjiku cares about health. Wanjiku cares about schooling, education. Wanjiku cares about the cost of living. That's all Wanjiku cares about. Everything else you introduce into Wanjiku is pure drama.
Right.
All right? Make the laws that are in tune with Wanjiku. Anything else does not make sense.
Right.
Wanjiku is looking for transformation, period. The kind of governance that you give Wanjiku should work for Wanjiku. But when you say the only thing that will help this country is a powerful premier, the only thing that will help this country is parliamentary-led, that's...
It's not speaking to the issues.
No. And we will get there. What happens when we get there and we find out that this is not working? Remember, before the promulgation of the new constitution, we are told this will be it. We followed the Kriegler blueprint. We came up with a constitution. We've not implemented half of that constitution. But we want to run into other diversionary tactics, if you will.
Right.
So what tells you or what informs us that the minute we get there and we change everything, whether it's Punguza or BBI, and we find we still have problems in our hands, where will we run to?
And it's an interesting point you've raised there. I want to bring Ruth in on this as well, because we've had Professor Yashpal Gai, Mohammed Abdikadir talking about the fact that we don't need to reform this constitution. We need to be honest to ourselves and actually implement it. We're not giving devolution a chance, and it's politicians who are taking this and now have hijacked the process to make it about them. How do, because they watch the news and they're like, okay, fine, this is their thing. As a citizen, how do you bring back the power to yourself?
Yeah.
How do you do that, Ruth?
You know, one thing I agree with Yashpal Gai and very many other scholars who have spoken about our constitution is that it is one of the best constitutions in the world, properly thought out constitution. And for me, again, I say it's a mere issue of implementing the constitution and entrenching constitutionalism within our governance and leadership system, as well as following the rule of law. The moment you observe the rule of law, which actually, when we talk about the rule of law, we think of it as such an inachievable concept or something that is unrealistic. But the rule of law is mere tenets, simple tenets, things as simple as one, particular bodies or institutions tasked with fulfilling their roles, doing so. For instance, one of the reasons why Raila is rooting for a parliamentary system and other people who share in his view, they are saying that this will enhance accountability. Indeed, it has been proven in other nations that a parliamentary system would enhance accountability. But does it mean that our current constitution lacks measures or systems or programs in place to ensure that accountability is held, accountability of our cabinet secretaries, accountability of our president himself and various institutions? No, there are institutions and our laws, were very much, they were so expansive in describing who should play which role. Parliamentary committees are supposed to hold, cabinet secretaries in check. We introduced so many institutions, for instance, the Controller of Budget institution, whose role and function was to audit all ministries, all government entities at the end of every financial year and find out where has money been lost. And then after his report, parliamentary committees and even county assemblies were supposed to debate those particular proposals that he had brought forth and find out which MPs are culpable, which ministries have lost money, which government entities need to be investigated. But are we seeing Parliament playing that role? No. Are we seeing the president, when cabinet secretaries are indicted for corruption or even called out for corruption severally, do we see the president exercising his power and saying, you know what, no, you need to step aside as a cabinet secretary for investigations? We don't see that. So if we cannot work with the current propositions that our constitution has put in place for accountability, let us not think that a parliamentary system will change things. For me, I feel that this parliamentary system that we are advocating for is a mere, power, a strategy for some people to remain in power, which is not the best way to rule a country, because I've seen a lot of proponents saying that, oh, having a parliamentary system or having a prime minister position with 2 deputy prime ministers will help in resolving the ethnicity problem that we have and will help in ensuring that there is inclusivity included within the government. We do not need to fight for inclusivity if we have proper working systems. We do not need to, fight for inclusivity of minority communities if we have appointments based on meritocracy. What you would be doing is you would simply look at who are the best fit persons for a particular position, and you will tell me that even within the cabinet, appointments of cabinet secretaries, you will find very competent Tukanas that you can appoint for certain positions. You'll find very competent Mijikendas that you can appoint for certain positions. So we don't need to change an entire governance system to achieve inclusivity, to fight ethnicity within a country, and as well as to promote accountability. We have all those measures in our current constitution. Some people are saying that this might be in the BBI, but we're looking at the alternative as it comes up in terms of the Punguza Mzigo initiative, because people are saying this was grassroots. They got 1 million signatures plus before it went in there. But the test on the ground, Kiambu County Assembly rejecting it again. Is it now 6 counties that
only Uasin Gishu so far gave it the go-ahead as far as they were concerned. Is this dead on arrival? Because people are looking at it and like, will it really get the threshold it needs to move forward?
You see, it may or it may not. And I don't think that's a problem. The problem is, like Ruth has said, the current constitution, yes, we've been given a channel where we need to audit the current constitution. And that's what, the constitution is a live document, all right? It is not static. It's dynamic. We need to move around and shift things around. What is working for us? What is not working for us? And you know, the constitution that we have, I think it's a great constitution, all right? Key, among the most expensive, if you will, among the most progressive, all right? So it provides ways of actually dealing with everything, matters governance, matters devolution, matters corruption. And you have laws, we have the DPP, the DCI, officers that have, you know, the EACC, officers that have been given life. Right. All right, to be able to deal with this issue. The greatest, the biggest thing, if you ask me, that's ailing this country is corruption and bad governance. Yeah. If we are able to sort that, we have a great nation.
Do we need a referendum for that, or is it political?
No, to solve that? No. Let me tell you. You know, when people are talking about going to a referendum, you know, we'll go to a referendum and finish a referendum and still come back and find we still have the same issues. That is my fear. Having wasted so much money. And I'm not saying a referendum is either good or not, but we must ask, why are we going to a referendum? Is the referendum that we are talking about, is it Wanjiku driven or politician driven? Once we get to table that and say, this will work for Wanjiku, Wanjiku wants ABC, then we'll be heading in the right place. Right. But remember, even the constitution that we have, we all said it was Wanjiku driven. So why does it have problems with it? And when it comes to things that we are talking about, you know, we just realized in 2013 and 2017, the elections that we ran in this country were some of the most expensive, actually the most expensive elections in the world. Oh, yes. Right? So what does that tell you? You know, we are not, and I'm not really degrading my country, we are heading there, we are getting there. Someday in the future we will get there, but you are not a first world. You know, the monies that we have really should go into other things, not just running a most, expensive election. Look at our friends in the Gambia. Yaya Jammeh and Adam Barrow. Adam Barrow, actually, people voted by using marbles. They counted marbles. We had one of the most sophisticated elections. Yet we could not, the issues, we couldn't even allow ourselves to play good politics and good elections. And so that goes on to tell you, Jeff, that the problem may not be in the structures. The problem is with the change of our mind, changing our minds.
And how do we do that? Because what is happening is we're not changing our mindset, but we are just different coverings to do this.
We are just rigid. We have refused to change our minds.
As a country.
And you see, and this is when somebody said, there's somebody actually who looked at the whole thing and said, you know the problem with this election is that we've accepted it cannot produce a loser, not a winner. It cannot produce a loser.
So everyone has to.
Do you remember in 2002? Do you remember what Uhuru did?
Yeah.
He conceded. Yeah. That election produced something. It produced a loser. Somebody who conceded and said it's done. Yeah. And for the first time in the history of this country, we had a president being sworn in.
Colorfully. The whole
without
nation.
Crazy skirmishes.
Yeah.
And it died there.
Yeah.
That is what we need to have. We need to come of age where we say this candidate and this candidate ran for office. This one was defeated. He or she accepted the loss, conceded, shook hands, reached out to the other side of the divide and say, come, let's sit down, let's work together for the betterment of this country. That is the only time I feel, Jeff, we will realize what we call transformation.
Ruth, very quickly, as we go to take your parting shots as well, we've seen what has happened with Punguza Mzigo on this particular one. You're waiting for the BBI as well. And now this is taking a political angle, and as Gabriel has said, it's not still speaking to Wanjiku and what their needs and concerns are right now. So what's the solution? We know it's corruption, we know it's a cost of living, yet we spend money on Huduma number registration and census that comes immediately after that, and now a referendum, yet we're talking about austerity. How do we solve this for the people who are paying the price, literally?
Yeah, I think Kenyans need to take power back into their hands. Remember when the Constitution says all sovereign power belongs to the people and can be exercised directly or through democratically elected representatives. I think this is the time where we need, and I'm not calling for a revolution, please do not misquote me, but this is the time that Kenyans need to take power into their hands. How? One of the ways through which Kenyans are supposed to exercise their sovereign power directly is through holding to account their leadership, holding to account the systems that have been put in place, asking the tough questions, sitting down with their leaders and questioning, sitting down with institutions and calling for a review of these institutions, because as we have mentioned, I'm not even going to repeat the problems, We have mentioned the several problems that Kenyans are facing, which are very simple and very basic questions. Solve corruption. So how do we solve it if indeed the systems that have been put in place cannot hold to account these institutions? We Kenyans need to sit down and say we are calling for a review of the EACC. We are calling for a review of the DPP. Yes. We want to sit down and review the judiciary, because it is simply, we just need to follow the laws. We need to simply implement the constitution. And then again, Kenyans should now begin to realize that anybody who stands up saying they are coming, they are pushing your interests, never really are pushing your interests. Even Punguza Mzigo itself, and I think Kenyans are realizing, by the way, one of the fundamental flaws of Punguza Mzigo is to literally dismantle how our society is currently constituted. Because when they are saying they want to reduce the number of members of parliament, what would that mean? That we will need to have another boundary delimitation process. And we know of communities that have been fighting for a very long time over the boundaries issues. When we talk about that, we will still have to think about reallocation of resources. And that is a whole other issue that, Kenyans literally think about. So anybody purporting at this particular point to be representing the interests of the Mwananchi is clearly not representing their interests.
Okay. So
Kenyans need to fight for their own interests and take power back into our hands.
Fantastic. Have a minute to go, 30 seconds each. Gabriel Muthuma, your parting shot as you wind up.
My parting shot for the week, I think, is the issue of this school. I think we need to take this issue seriously. And if we have aligned ourselves and have these officers all put together to ensure that the environment where our children go to school is safe, then we need to live up to the true meaning of actually administering that particular element of ensuring our environment where the school children are going is safe. Having said that, it is also critical that now these departments all set out, some through the constitution, and even individuals like the city county, where you have, whether it's the formations, where you have, what do you call them, the builders association, what have you. We need to set up a fora where people can share these ideas, and where an environment that does not seem suitable for learners should actually be arrested at the earliest possible. We are losing children on a daily basis, whether it's through our roads, whether it's through our dormitories, whether it's through the structures that came down. We have gone through years where we are losing young lives. And I think at this point, it is sad when a parent sends their children to school in the morning only for this child not to come back at home.
Ruth, your parting shot?
My parting shot. First and foremost, every generation has a role or responsibility that is, placed upon them to deliver for the coming generation, for the next generation to come. And failure to execute this duty or function or role or responsibility, the future shall hold us accountable to our failure when we had the time. So when I say that Kenyans need to take up responsibility for their governance system, I'm basically addressing the youth in general, because for a long time the youth have been seen as being averse to politics, not wanting to be a part of the national conversation, not wanting to hold their leaders to account, not even wanting to be seen anywhere close to political discussions. And it is going to cost not just our generation, but the generations to come. If we do not participate in the decision-making process today, if we do not define the kind of leadership structure that we want today, we will suffer the consequences of bad governance, and our own children will come and ask us that when you were young, when you were 20, 23, 25, 30, 35, what did you do to hold your government to account? And finally, I love the new look of the studio.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, beautiful.
And of course, as you can see, we didn't even to go into another half hour just to discuss all that was coming up as we wound up as far as it was concerned. Gabriel Muthuma, thank you so much for making time.
Asante sana, Jeff.
Welcome back. We'll see you here plenty more times as far as it's concerned. We wind up a newspaper review at that particular point in time. Take a break. We are back as we get interactive. This is K24 This Morning.